It's like, what? How? One of those, very similar to Max at Monaco, right? How is this? You can't I can't square what's happened. It needs unpicking.
Said on the last shakedown that I theorised that the McLaren is only good in cooler conditions. Well, last weekend they blew that out the water. So McLaren are back. I think we're seeing Lando this season go into that level of driver that we've got. The Lewis, the Charles, the Max.
Racing, especially F1 racing, is intrinsically risky, and there's always going to be a life risk in there, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
At what point, though, do the FIA need to look at Radillon and Eau Rouge and say, you know what, this is, it's brilliant for diehards, hardcore fans around the world. They love it. But this portion of the track, we've had too much deaths around here. Hubert, bloody Danny, like, you know what I mean? It's a hot spot now, and we need to do something to fix this.
But they still had a practice session, and there was still time set. But yeah, during that practice session, they then announced, these times will not set the grid if we can't do quality. It will be World Championship order. What's the point of the practice session? The practice session has given you times. And you don't know what's going to happen, and that's the beauty of sport. And when you distill it down to its purest, you need that uncertainty. Watching a race where you know a guy's going to win, it might be entertaining behind, but loses the same thought. Be it Lewis, be it Max, be it Michael Schumacher, be it Sebastian Vettel, whoever. F1 is not football, where you can change a manager willy-nilly. You need to give a team principal time to implement their ideas.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown. With me, as always, my esteemed colleague, my brother, my co-host, Baxty B. How are we doing, sir?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Fresh off the back of a red eye, but we move. Been a while, mate. I've been getting messages. Yeah. Where's the Shakedown, Cameron? What are you doing? You're slacking, mate. It's been about 10 weeks. What's going on? The YouTube algorithm is not going to like you anymore, so we had to get one in, mate, and there's lots going on that we need to talk about, right? Should we talk about Hungary very quickly? Yep. I was gutted being in Jamaica that I didn't have a chance to properly dissect it with you guys and pick your brain. Firstly, I want to talk about Lewis Hamilton's qualifying lap. God tier or misrepresented, Baxty, because I'm hearing lots of different things in the community.
It was a great lap, and I think it's been made to look slightly better than it was because he got pole. I think, let's be frank, Verstappen didn't do a very good second run in Q3. I think if he'd done a decent run in Q3, he probably would have got pole. But you know what? It doesn't take away from the moment of seeing Lewis get pole, be there, get that incredible moment, and the reaction when he got pole.
Oh.
No other driver could get that kind of reaction other than maybe Max in Holland. But it's got to the point with Max right now where Lewis was a few years ago where it's almost expected. So it's just like, he got pole, big deal. Whereas Lewis hasn't been on pole since Saudi 2021. So it's like, this is great.
Yeah, I didn't hate it back. So I couldn't believe it when I didn't watch qualifying live and I saw it afterwards and Twitter was like mad, like, we've done it, we're back. Mate, I don't think that lap gets enough respect. I know that it wasn't perfect, and I know he was on the back of a bit of good fortune. Max had a cheeky, it was like the penultimate turn, like a bit of a steering.
Yeah, but Lewis did as well.
That's the point. Yeah. So Nico Rosberg was right to pull up Christian Horner on that. Lewis absolutely didn't have a perfect lap either. But ultimately, I think the headline is that W14B is an SH1T box. And for Lewis Hamilton to put that on pole at the Hungaro ring with that RB19 and Max Verstappen as quick as they are is a massive good news story. I was gutted that I wasn't here to live about it because it's like, what? How? One of those, very similar to Max at Monaco, right? How is this? You can't I can't square what's happened. It needs unpicking. Needs a bit of a deep dive. Go on then. Let me pick your brain on Lewis's start at Hungary. So I'm hearing that's another one that's quite polarizing. I'm hearing people say that Lewis didn't do it. Same old Lewis, right? Defended almost a bit too nice in his defence of Max Verstappen going into turn one. Talk to me about that, Baxter.
He got a bad start, let's be frank. There wasn't really much more he could have done with Max other than shove him off the road, and we know that's not Lewis's style. I think he it was either shove Max off the road or have a massive crash. And, considering that it's his first pole position in nearly 2 years, I think, he was going to be cautious and wanting to try and hold position. Of course, that fight then compromised him with the McLarens, who, once again, McLaren proving that their car is quick. I said on the last Shakedown that I theorized that the McLaren is only good in cooler conditions. Well, last weekend they blew that out the water. So McLaren are back, and I'm so happy because I used to be a McLaren fan. I kind of still am a little bit of a McLaren. All the Lewis Hamilton fans are secretly McLaren fans. Let's be honest here. But I think, it was a bad start by Lewis, and I think the problem he had is that at the start of the race, that Mercedes was slow but as it got lighter on its fuel, yes, all the cars get quicker, but for some reason the Mercedes got more competitive. Lewis was hunting down Checo Perez at the end of the race, and I think if he'd had a couple more laps, I think he could have got him. But and Russell was looking particularly impressive. I know he had a terrible qualifying, but he was looking particularly impressive at the end of the race as well. So there's work to be done for Mercedes, but I think it's one of those weekends. It's like we've had the high with Lewis and Pole. We can take that to the bank, but I think it's a realistic expectation of where we are as a team. It's we're scrapping in that second place fight with Ferrari and Aston, and now McLaren definitely are there. I think McLaren have left themselves too much to do to get that P2, unless Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston just wipe out every weekend. But that's not going to happen. Let's be frank.
Go on then. Let's talk about McLaren. I wanted to peel back to the Lewis incident, but you've pretty much covered it. I contended that Lewis was almost more aggressive with Max Verstappen than they'd expect typically, and I kind of like that that he'd angled the car to defend hard into turn one, and then left taking the racing line as late as possible. That's what once you've made a mistake, it's kind of. That's the only play to. And
Hungary's one of those tracks where when you do make a mistake, you're going to get punished. Because there isn't long run, but also there isn't a lot of runoff as well. Like, in the past, he could have just, in other tracks like Abu Dhabi, for example, like he did in 21, he could just go to the escape road and then be like, oh, no, I've given the distance back. It's all good. Whereas on this occasion, it was risk and reward, and it failed for him.
Yeah, I didn't hate it, man. I think his process, for the most part, was again. I would have loved it for him to get a bloody launch off the line and then and try and use the twisty Hungaro ring to defend for as long as possible. But I don't know. For once, I can't really critique Lewis off the start. He did the old Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello thing. Like he used the inside right to his benefit, and I don't hate it. Go on, and let's talk about McLaren very quickly, because watching the highlights again, I didn't watch live. Watching the highlights, I was ever so slightly confused by the fact that Piastri had track position, but Lando Norris was given the opportunity at the undercut. What do you make of that, mate? Are we seeing a driver hierarchy form?
I think it's a techie one. Yeah, I think they are. I think there is a bit of a driver hierarchy going on. I think Lando is definitely the number one driver for now. But I mean, Oscar showed today. Mate. We'll get to that. But yeah, Oscar's starting to show his minerals a little bit. I mean, look, Oscar at the start of the season, he was good, but he wasn't great. And Lando was putting in the better performances. But Oscar's got on top of that car now. And I think that driver hierarchy could change very, very quickly. But right now, Lando's the number one driver, and it's within McLaren's interest to make Lando the number one driver, considering he is a hot prospect right now. Red Bull are reportedly interested. Ferrari are reportedly interested. It would not surprise me if Mercedes were reportedly interested as well.
Go. Let's go. Do talk about it. I didn't put my longer, bigger, brighter horizon cap on Baxty, and I was about to contend that McLaren are making a mistake by prioritising Lando Norris over Oscar Piastri, because I think Oscar might be the guy to take them back to the promised land in the long term, mate.
Who knows? Yeah.
Was particularly enthusiastic with his defence of one Checo Perez, mate. Super pragmatic, that dude.
Damaged his car though.
This is true. This is true. That's not great, but I don't know. I think he's he drives much like he talks, right? There's no chaff. He's a minimalist, and I love that, man. None of this extra movement and nonsense. He's going to try and defend as hard as he can, but then the second that he sees, well, okay, bigger picture, I'm going to start losing time, he's like abandoned ship. I love Oscar. Piastri, let's go. Talk to me about them rumours quickly that you just alluded to.
It's all social media gossip. It's just, I mean, McLaren. It was kind of intense towards the beginning of the season because obviously McLaren were crap and everything else, and Max has spoken glowingly about Lando, and we know that he had talks, and we know that there were talks between Red Bull and Lando, but then Lando signed an extension with McLaren with no exit clause. Slap on the wrist for that. Always have a get out.
That's a legend.
And then you just hear these reports from Italy. I mean, how reliable are they? That apparently they're interested in him, but they're also interested in Alex Albon, who's been brilliant in the last few races. And then you hear that maybe Mercedes or Audi or somebody would be interested in his services. So Lando is a driver in demand, and I think right now it's in McLaren's interest to just be like, no, we still think you're our guy, Lando. Just don't worry about the really super quick Aussie in the other car. Don't worry about him. It's fine. You're our number one guy. Consecutive podiums. Oscar hasn't done that. So right now, Lando's the guy.
Oh, it's techie, man. It's very techie. I hadn't considered that. Lando Norris at Red Bull, though. Bloody Nora. They are good. I think if they were, I think that's the move. I just say Baxter. I just think if anyone on the grid, as far as not as far as pace, as far as like the dynamic and the fact that Lando and Max are besties. Mention no names, Esteban Ocon. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to put someone in there with a view to maintain the same sort of platonic relationship that Checo Perez has with Max Verstappen, if you just don't want it, if your primary objective is to not upset the apple cart, then Lando Norris has to be pole position for that Red Bull Racing number 2 seat.
I wouldn't say so. I think Lando is somebody who, he's somebody that's there to win. He doesn't care. If he has to send one up the inside of Max, he will. If he's in that position, he will do it. He will ignore team orders. I'm fairly certain to do it. I think we're seeing Lando this season go into that level of driver that we've got. The Lewis, the Charles, the Max. Him and George are both kind of. George has been creeping in there since last year, but Lando's starting to do it this year, and he's been mightily impressive. He really has. We'll have to see.
Donate it, bruv. Donate it. Lando will send it. Therein lies the title of this podcast. Mate, you've nailed it. Go on then. Let's talk about some Spa. Because initially I was quite concerned. As I was in Jamaica sunning myself, I started to see that the weather forecast was torrential rain again. Belgium never fails to disappoint on the weather front. But most saliently, again, this is only a couple of weeks after Danilo's fatal accident, right? The old Radillon and Eau Rouge, one of the most dangerous portions of any track on the calendar. Baxty, talk to me about how you see... We want to see racing, right? And we've already talked a couple of podcasts ago about how racing, especially F1 racing, is intrinsically risky. And there's always going to be a life risk in there, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
At what point, though, do the FIA need to look at Radillon and Eau Rouge and say, you know what, this is, it's brilliant for diehards, hardcore fans around the world. They love it. But this portion of the track, we've had too much deaths around here. Hubert, bloody Danilo, like, you know what I mean? It's a hot spot now, and we need to do something to fix this. Do we need to change Spa in perpetuity as far as track layouts?
Some people will be calling you a heretic for that, Cameron.
It's sacrilege, mate.
Honestly, and I hate to be brutal about it, but it's going to take a death in F1. I mean, the accident that Lando had 2 years ago should have been. I mean, that could have been really serious. Right. And we saw the reaction that Seb Vettel had. Furious at Michael Masi, and also,
he told them. He said.
There were some big crashes today. I know Logan had a particularly big one in practice, but in quali they were safe. It was a little bit precarious at points, I I hate to be brutal about it, but the FIA are so slow in moving in things that it's going to take somebody driving in dying, in an F1 car, and I obviously don't wish that at all. But that's the only way they'll change it.
Mate,
Yeah.
how bad is that? This is 1994 Imola all over again, and slow pace cars, as they were called back in the day. Sort yourselves out, FIA. We don't want this again. I don't want to get on my speaker box here, but I think there's something to be said if we're talking to FIA to be a bit more just forward facing, man. Fix some of these things. Do you know what I mean? In the off season, it seems like they go away. They all just go to bloody Monaco or Nice or wherever they're sunning themselves, and then just that nothing's done. There's no progress. We don't get any like status update or.
Look what happened in Japan last year,
mate. Half the time they haven't even updated the bloody safety regs to reflect the changes.
There should never be a tractor on the track in Suzuka when it's wet and the drivers are still on track. And then Pierre Gasly is driving past, and what does he see? He sees a tractor on track.
The death track. Death tractor. Bloody Laura Baxty. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. They just don't learn from their mistakes. They were given a gift, not a gift, but they were given first-hand evidence that this might not be a good idea to have this bloody thing on track whilst these guys are driving at 10 temps. You have radio, there is race control, you're in contact with all of the teams for the most part all the time. I think that was the issue that they had.
What I would say is, I think with this track in particular, I think they are really cautious on safety. I think it's part of the reason why we didn't race in 21. I think if the Antoine Hubert crash hadn't have happened, we may have had a race in 2021. And also they're thinking of 98 as well, because that was a really dangerous situation. So I think they are more, when it's wet, Spa is a track they do not mess around with. I mean, Q3 got delayed today just so that they could get rid of some of the gravel on track, even though the track was drying and they were able to complete that last quali on softs. They were not taking any chances. So I get it, but I think that, maybe they need to make a change. I think it's okay just now. But I think, as I said, basically until an F1 driver dies, they're not going to do anything.
Bloody Nora Baxty. As morbid as that sounds, I don't think you're wrong, because we just don't learn. There's no sort of continuous development methodology from their fight. It's just like every race weekend they just come and they throw their balls up and just see where they land. You know what I mean? Just throw some darts at a board and we might get a bullseye one time. I don't know. It's techie.
Well, let me give you a quick example of that. There was potential that quali could have been rained off today, but they still had a practice session and there was still time set. But during that practice session, they then announced, these times will not set the grid if we can't do quali. It will be World Championship order. What's the point of the practice session? The practice session has given you times. Now, lo and behold, Max Verstappen would be last in that situation. He was P20 in practice because he didn't set a time. And with his penalty, it would have negated his penalty. But he would have started at the back and he probably would have been in the lead by about lap 15. But, you had times. You could have set a grid, but you chose not to because you wanted world. Now, there's probably something in the rules that state that. But you know what? Just use your times and just have a little think about it.
Yeah.
Just have a little think about it. They won't, because they don't do that sort of thing.
Because
they're like, no,
fear. Because
we've got our processes.
Mate. Well, but if that's the case, then mate, I don't want to get into fear. Fear seizing defeat from the jaws of victory in perpetuity for as long as I can remember. Good luck to them. Go on, and let's talk about qualifying very quickly, because it was interesting, right? And the thing that jumps off the page at me, in amongst other very salient, pertinent news stories, is the communication between Max Verstappen and GP, mate. GP's had enough of him, hasn't he? Baxty. I think they're getting to that stage where GP's just like, you know what, mate? If you're I'm sitting out here doing my best. I put up with your nonsense on a daily. I keep you in check. I keep you on the straight and narrow. I give you, for the most part, 99.9% of the time, the best strategies, using which you can go out and nail your hot laps and flip in 7 victories in a row. This will be 8, breaking Sebastian Vettel's record, if he can get it. I think.
Not yet, nearly.
Really?
I think Seb was 9. I think.
Oh wow. Okay, there you
Yeah.
go. So he's close.
Yeah.
He's close.
Yeah.
GP's just had enough, hasn't he? Let me read out the transcript because I wrote it down. I was like, this is fascinating. I love a bit of driver performance engineer beef. Max Verstappen said, I should have pushed 2 laps in a row because, by the way, for those who weren't watching, nearly out in Q2, eh? He was 10th. Bloody Laura. Max responded to GP. I think GP just gave him a, yeah, well done, mate. Max responded, I should have pushed 2 laps in a row like I said. GP responds, but you were through, Max. Max responds, I don't give an F, mate. And he didn't say F. He said something else, which was a bit naughtier. I don't give an F, mate. If I'm through in P10, it's just SH1T execution. GP responds like the legend that he is. Okay. And when the track was 2 seconds quicker for the final lap and you didn't have any energy left, how would that have gone down, Max? What a legend.
Yeah.
Let's go, GP. But you know what? GP continues. You tell me what you want in Q3 and we'll do it. Let me know. Sets, fuel, run plan. Fucking get in there, GP. Push back, sir. I think GP's an actor. I made a video a couple of weeks back and I said that GP's a patron saint. I don't know how. Very similar to Lewis in his patience with that bloody car that has square tyres. I think these two need to get, like, if there was a Nobel Peace Prize for patience, I think Lewis and GP would be like top contenders. Baxty, talk to me. Yeah. Am I over egging that cake?
Yeah, I think being Max Verstappen's a race engineer, you do have to have a level of patience. He is definitely a demanding soul, but I think all the drivers are demanding souls. I think, this kind of goes back to what we were chatting about a few weeks ago with Toto and Lewis, in that, you're going to have frank discussions in the middle of sessions, particularly a qualifying session. And, when a driver gets cheesed off, you've got to be firm sometimes. You got to know when to be firm. You got to know when to be softly. And I think GP was just like, no, Max, shut up. You're through. We did the right thing. We're in the right here, not you. Okay? This was just 2 professionals having a frank discussion. And you know what? Max actually, in credit to him, apologized afterwards. Which I think is, that's a good thing. Yeah, he did say sorry. But these are heat of the moment things. I mean, when I'm working in the music environment, I get pissed off all the time. I've had moments where I've blown up and got angry, and just afterwards you apologise to the person in question and you move on. And that's what will happen. But Max has got a temper. We know he does, but he's not the first driver to have a temper, and he won't be the last.
Fair. I think that's a very pragmatic approach that you've got there, Baxty. But I think because I'm so bloody sensitive, like I hear that interaction. Like I used to play football at a decent level. And I think the higher and higher you get up in competitive sport, I think the more that you get these frank conversations. Like you said, Baxty, people don't care, right? They're going to F and blind and whatever in the heat of the moment. And I found, as I rose up the football ranks, that it wasn't for me, because I was too that if I wanted to get the best out of myself on a football pitch, I needed to have my my esteem massaged. That stuff, so, and the only reason I say that is to parlay that back into GP and Max Verstappen's interactions. Because if Max comes over the radio and says what he said to me, Baxty, that's not going to go down well. But I suppose that's why I'm not Max Verstappen's race engineer.
Yeah.
And that's why GP for Nobel Peace Prize of Nobel Patience Prize. I think he's a legend, mate. Doesn't get enough credit at all for keeping Max on the straight and narrow. Did you see the video, by the way, when of Max? I think Max goes to him on the pit wall and GP's like, he almost like hits his. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I can't remember when that was, but
hit, mate. Yeah. I think he's almost a big brother to Max, and I think he's a keystone in Max Verstappen's success.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, their relationship clearly works. They've won 2 world titles together. They're on a run of form right now that is almost unmatched. I mean, basically, Rocky and Seb is the only other comparison, or Ross and Michael. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Don't hate it, bruv. Don't hate it at all. I think you're onto something there. Go on then, let's talk about Red Bull's pace again. Another one of these things that we need to keep coming to. 8 tenths, Baxty. 8 tenths. And I keep hearing rumour that they're not even dialing it up to 12 yet. They're still the double, triple, the super duper DRS, as Ted keeps calling it, has been dialed back. Lewis Hamilton said last weekend, have a look at that DRS. Something's been going on. Have they been into something dodgy? Have the FIA had a word behind closed doors, lifting back the fourth wall, as Lewis Hamilton does like to do sometimes? What are we making of Red Bull, mate? 8/10 feels like a chasm, but are we singing from the same hymn sheet when I say that 8/10 is? I think 8/10 is probably like 70% of the gap. I don't think they're going.
I think today was a harder one. I think it was it was difficult because drying track, and Max was one of the last guys out there. Certainly for his rivals for pole position, he was behind them. With the Ferraris and the McLarens, and I think they nailed the best of the conditions as much as they could. There were 9 temps between him and Checo Perez. That is just outrageous in that car. Like, outrageous. And Checo went after Max as well. Checo went after Max and was 9 temps slower.
That is, like, what are we doing, Baxty?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It was an outrageous qualifying lap. And considering the pressure he would have put himself under after being terrible in Q2, and knowing he needs to maximise his position because he's got this penalty coming, so he's going to be starting P6. Talk about absolutely nailing it under pressure again. You can't doubt it. It was an amazing lap. And he's going to start P6 and win by miles. I've got no doubt about that. We shouldn't be saying that, but that's the reality of the situation. He'll bide his time, wait for DRS, and then just go boom, boom, boom. See you later. I'm off. See you. I'll be 30 seconds up the road.
Unbelievable. Absolutely correct. I don't know. I do think there is a the part-time casual in me when we're watching this sort of stuff. But I'm like, can we just get some fighting for first place, please? Can somebody just get onto him? But then the diehard in me is like, hold on, this is something that you don't like. This level at which Max and GP and Red Bull and Schmidt and
12 races in a row, breaking McLaren's record. Levels. That's a record that nobody thought would ever get touched.
Levels.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's level. You've got to appreciate the greatness that Red Bull are showing right now. It's ridiculous. I want to see pugilism at the front. We've had this discussion back and forth, just the two of us and Shez as well. But, it's sometimes you just have to sit back for a minute and go, yeah, these guys are nailing it. Now, of course, there'll be people that will say, but they broke the cost cap in. Yep, okay, fine. And, they got a slap on the wrist for that. But, they're still making lemonade out of lemons, to use a really outdated cliche. They are, they're just nailing it in every sense of the word. And, I think Max will break Seb's record. I think he'll win 10, 11 to 8, 11 races in a row. I think now it's a very real possibility that they will win every race this season and break that McLaren record.
Oh, mate, this is... Oh, Baxty,
but it's not good for the sport in the same time. It's like, you can appreciate the greatness, and even as a Lewis Hamilton fan, I can appreciate that there will be people will call me a hypocrite for this. But let me make this clear: I loved Lewis's dominance because I'm a Lewis fan, but I hated the fact that there wasn't, particularly in the years where it was just Lewis. Obviously, slightly different circumstances. There were internal battles. There was the Ferrari fight and everything else, but. Yes, okay, Lewis versus Rosberg was dramatic in its own right, but how much better would it have been if there's another team involved? But of course, that didn't materialise. Right now, it's just Max just streaming off into the distance. One of my most hated seasons was 2013. I actually tuned out with 2013 because I was like, I can't be bothered. Seb's going to win every race for the rest of the season. See you later. I'm not interested. I don't like watching sport where the result is known. It's why, I'm a big cricket fan. I've been watching the Ashes this summer. It's been one of the best Ashes series in years. Okay, it's finishing under a slightly damp squib because of the rain, and now Australia have retained and everything else. But, every game, every ball, every session has been unbelievable. And, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of sport. And when you distill it down to its purest, you need that uncertainty. Watching a race where a guy's going to win, might be entertaining behind, but loses the same thought, be it Lewis, be it Max, be it Michael Schumacher, be it Sebastian Vettel, whoever.
Completely agree, Baxty. You've gone very deep there, putting bloody goosebumps on my neck. I love it. Talking about the meaning of sport and the profundity. It's listen, blame Checo Perezzo. But I you know what, I say that tongue in cheek, but there are serious undertones when I say it, because I think there is a dependence. If there is a dominant team, we rely very heavily on the Nico Rosberg, the second driver, to bloody take it to the number one driver, in this case, Max Verstappen, though.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because there was a rumour doing the rounds, I think it was last week. Now, of course, this was once again social media rumours, take everything with a pinch of salt, everything else. That apparently Charles Leclerc is also on Red Bull's radar. And
let's go.
Apparently, Liberty Media have been saying maybe you should get a competitive driver. We need a title fight here, Red Bull. Now, look, these are just social media reports. So, and I said at the time, I said, look, I'd be very uncomfortable if Liberty had done that, because I don't think you should be interfering with a team's business. Just because, it's in your best interest to get a competitive driver in the car. But Red Bull can do what the hell they want. They're a private team. Yeah, if they want Max to win every race, so be it.
Mate, but you know what the joke is? We've been talking, haven't we, Baxty, for the past couple of weeks, that at some point, Liberty, FIA are going to have to bang their heads together and do something, whether it's a reg or a sporting code. They're going to have to bring in some sort of directive to somehow, some sort of artifice, whatever that is, get somebody proper in that car to race Max Verstappen, change the rules and the regs, ban out like weights in the car.
They need to empower the other teams to get better. That's what, rather than pegging Red Bull back, which is something I have advocated for it, but opinions do change and you kind of think about it. They need to empower the other teams to catch up to Red Bull. Look, the penalty that Red Bull got last year, slap on the wrist. Slap on the wrist. They're never going to catch them up. So, empower the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari and, give them the opportunity to be able to catch up. I'll throw one out there. I've spoken about a sliding scale on cost cap as well. So if you win the championship, you have less of a budget than the team that comes 10th. I know that's punishing you for winning, but, if you're trying to balance everything out, that's just an idea. People can disagree with me in the comments. That's absolutely fine. But that's just one idea to throw out there. So give Red Bull less of a budget than a Williams or a Haas. Yeah,
that's genius. I don't even hate that, Baxi. But I think the time is. I think the time for like the good process solutions. I think Liberty Media will be looking at viewing figures, looking at attendance figures, and doing one of these. Will be like, you know what, chaps? I think we need to
Well, sponsors are going to start talking as well.
I think it's bazooka time. We need to get the bazooka solutions out now.
But the problem is, Mohammed Ben Sulayem doesn't want to do anything. Neither does Stefano Domenicali. They're happy with the way things are. Yeah, it's like, are you really there, boys?
But I think those guys, to a certain extent, are like, they're not holding the purse strings. They're the puppets more than the puppet masters. So when we get to the board meeting, they're going to be like, do you know what I mean? They'll do the presentation, but when it comes to the serious material, strategic decision making, there'll be counsel rather than the button pushers. They're going to have to do something soon. I like the Charles Leclerc idea. I really, really do.
As I said, it's a fun idea, but I don't like the idea of the company that owns
It's
F1.
not their remit.
Yeah, exactly. Don't dictate to a team what to do, because and I'd say the same if it was Mercedes. Like, put Lando in a Mercedes alongside Lewis. No, it's none of your business.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like Mohammed Ben talking about the valuation of F1, right? It's not his.
Yeah, absolutely.
This isn't in your job description, sadly, mate. So you might want to take 2 seats and plead the 5th. But it is interesting that Charles thing. Bloody no. Go on then, very quickly, mates, as we round third base. Let's talk about Alpine very quickly, because it's getting techie over there at Alpine, isn't it? They're becoming the French Ferrari, as I heard one content creator say. in the last 18 months, here's who's left. Here's the list of them. Pat Fry left for Williams, CTO. Permanet, or however you pronounce his name. Permain, there you go. Rossi's left, or been sacked. Alonso's gone. Piastri they let go of because their legal team is nonsense. Prost, Budkowski,
Yeah, he was the TP the first year of Alpine before Otmar. Yeah,
there you go. And then Zafnauer. So in 18 months, they've lost a lot of key personnel, not least among that. I think, I mean, Prost, Piastri and bloody Alonso, if they've kept those three, I don't know, mate. Something's going on there.
It's been announced today that Pat Fry is taking the Williams job.
Mate, exactly. So what?
Yeah.
Go on then, Baxty.
That's a big loss.
What is going on at Alpine here? Because I'm looking at that if I'm HR, yeah, I'm looking at those names and I'm just like, well, if I can keep all of them, I'm keeping all of them. None of the names on that list, none of those people are noddy people.
Yeah.
All of those, if I'm a rival team, I'm happy to pretty much snap up each and every single one of those. I know they've got their 100-day plan, and it's not necessarily going to plan as far as, I don't know, leapfrogging the likes of like Merck and bloody Red Bull. We're not there yet, but they're not too, you know what I mean? They're not flopping the case. I don't see anything at that team that warrants all these firings.
They've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They finished 4th last year, and it's not going as well because other teams have improved.
Yeah.
This is an argument I have with Mercedes fans. It's like, how can we be slower than McLaren? Because they improved their car. And it's, so I think, look, Lauren Rossi was the first one to go, and he was the one that was making all of the noise and being, all, excuse my language, daddy big bollocks around the thing, saying, we're going to be P2. It's like, no, ridiculous. What they need somebody to go in, and they need to be left alone. I think it's classic top level down management that we see at Ferrari, and it just doesn't work. Just let the team do what they need to do. When Ferrari was successful in the early 2000s, what was it? What did Jean Todt say? Leave me alone. I'm in charge. I think Otmar wanted to do that, but they wouldn't let him do it. So now they've got rid of him, even though so much of this is baffling. Otmar was not the problem at Alpine. The problem is that they are becoming a Ferrari just based in Oxford/France. It's utterly ludicrous. There's a reason why Fernando Alonso left, because he saw the sinking ship and, just dived straight off it.
Is that true though? But I don't, Baxi, I don't think that's maybe I'm not giving.
Well, he wanted to stay, but also I think
he wanted a contract. I'm sure Fernando came.
I think he could also see the writing on the wall as well. I feel sorry for Ocon and Gasly because I like them and I want them to do well, but I just think the team environment they're in right now is so poor. And they're letting Alan Permain go. Alan Permain has been there for 30 years. I think he was all the way back in the Benetton days. He was there. Just what you need to do is whoever is coming in as your new team boss, be it Mattia Binotto, if rumours are to be believed, or who else, say, right, we've hired you, build a team. We're not going to mess around, which is what I think Williams have done with James Vowles. They've said, right, James, Doralton Capitals have just gone, right, James, you're in charge. Here's the key to the castle. You do what you need to do. We'll leave you alone. Just make sure that we can see some tangible progress and get results. And that's what James Vowles has been doing. And I hope that Alpine do that, but they won't, because history shows us since 2016, it's top level down management. You had Cyril versus Fred. Fred went out the door. Cyril was in charge for a few years. They didn't get the results they wanted. Okay, Cyril goes out the door. Otmar's only been there 18 months. Oh no, you're not doing a good job. After this weekend, pack your bags. See you later. F1 is not football, where you can change a manager willy-nilly. You need to give a team principal time to implement their ideas. And unfortunately, Otmar's not been given a chance to do it. But also, there's no technical ramifications. They trust their tech team, even though their car isn't working. They feel that management is the problem. I think they need to have a look at themselves here. I'm not going to call people out and say you should fire XYZ person. That's, no, that's not me. But I think you just need to have a look at the tech side and go, well, hang on, maybe we had the right management in place, but perhaps maybe our tech side wasn't working as well. I mean, they've just let Pat Fry walk out the door. Fair enough. But Alpine are a mess right now, and they are not going to be competing anytime soon until they get their house in order. Very much like Ferrari, but I think Ferrari are starting to get there, and you hope that they will then leave Fred alone. But there's always that threat with them. But yeah, Alpine are a long way off, and I think this is just further confirmation that they're in the doldrums.
Oh, preach it, Baxty. Preach it. Don't be so mean, Baxter. I love it, mate. I think you've nailed it there, especially on the technical ramifications. And to that point, is Mattia Binotto the guy? You know what? This feels like I can't even ask the question in good faith, Baxter. Is Mattia Binotto the guy to come in? Bearing in mind he's a god tier engineer by all accounts. Is he the guy to come in and be team principal and lead that team back to the promised land?
Well, I mean, he led Ferrari to building a car that should have challenged for the championship last year, but then there were some problems that arose, certainly with the engine and everything else, and then obviously they had their strategic disasters. But if I'm Mattia Binotto, I would look at this situation and go, "Well, hang on, I was in the ultimate top level management down, top tier management downwards team in Ferrari." Well, Alpine are acting in exactly the same way. Why would I want to go back to a situation like that? Yeah, if I'm Mattia Binotto, I go, look, I've experienced what you're bringing. I will only take the job if you let me just do what I need to do. But I don't think they'll do that, and I think he'd be silly to take the job. As much as I think he's a very good engineer and a very good technical director in waiting, I still question his ability as a team principal from his time at Ferrari, but I wouldn't touch that job with a barge pole if I was Mattia Binotto.
Oh, I don't disagree, mate. I do not disagree at all. I think, I don't know, you got to play to your strengths, right? And I think this was the issue with Mattia Binotto. Of course, he did some good things. But again, leadership is very different to technical expertise. This is the point that you made, right? The technical ramifications. And I think what Mattia Binotto excels at isn't what... It's a very different skill set, but probably need a bit of that as well. But that's not the skill set that's needed to excel in a TP role, is it? It's just
I was talking to Shez privately, and he said that he would have been a great candidate for the technical job at Williams, which has obviously just gone to Pat Fry. Could have been a good one.
True.
Could have been a good one. That wasn't my idea. That was all Shez who said that. So give him his due.
Mate,
but
Shez knows a bit about F1, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah.
A bit of a scholar. Some say. Go on then. Finally, mate. I've got an overs. I want to do overs and unders with you because I've just checked the odds. I was going to ask you a pick for the Grand Prix, but that feels like a bit of an exercise in futility. So let's do this instead. Max Verstappen is 69%. With the bookmakers, meaning that if they run a simulation, if they run 100 simulations of the Grand Prix, the Belgian Grand Prix, he'll win 69 of 100, which is chaos, by the way. That's massive odds-on favourite with 20 other people or 19 other people potentially who could win that race. That's bonkers. So let's do this, Baxty. Let's do overs and unders. I want you to tell me where am I going to set this line now? Let's go. Oh, it's taking... All right, let's go 6 laps. Does it take Max Verstappen more or less than 6 laps to fight his way through the pack from 6th to 1st on race day? More or less. Overs and unders. Let's
go. I can't say that's the exact number, do I? Because I think it will be more... Because I think he will try and grab a couple of places off the start and will try and out-drag people, but he will just sit and he will wait until that DRS becomes active. If it does, I think it's going to be a dry race. And I think Red Bull have set up their car for dry conditions as well. That's something to note, which makes his qualifying lap even better in a way. But I think he will sit, wait, get the DRS, and he'll just mug everybody off. And I think... It will be between 6 to 10 laps, I think.
Oof.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, mate, that you said it's a dry race. I was thinking, had you not said dry race back still, I was thinking it's still potentially going to be wet. I would have gone more, I would have agreed with you. But thinking back to last
I'm going to check the conditions.
yeah, maybe. So I'd say this. If it's dry, I'm 100% going with less. Because he made his way through from 14th last year. Was it 14th on the... I think it was somewhere around, maybe 11th, something like that. And I remember looking by lap by lap 12 or 11, he was like in first, wasn't he? If it's a dry race, I'm saying less than 6.
So it's 40% chance of rain. So there could be some wet conditions, but I think if the race starts dry, he will be in the lead, and we know what he's like in the wet. I think
What am I talking about then, Baxty? That's
but
different.
the only chance I think anyone's got of beating him is if it's a wet start, because anything can happen in a wet start. He could get bowled out at the start.
Where's Valtteri Bottas when you need him?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. He did some more bowling as well in Hungary this year.
Did he?
Yeah, he hit Danny Rick at the start.
Oh my gosh. I was going to tweet out like Valtteri Bottas, Hungary 2021, where art thou?
Yeah. No, he hit Danny Rick, who, just a quick one, did very well on his first weekend back. I want to give him some flowers for that. But absolutely. Yeah.
Nailed it. Oh, bro. It will be an interesting race weekend, I'm sure. I'll be dialed in though. Always love a bit of Spa. Prefer Spa when it's dry, because again, I don't... It always gets a bit dicey as far as torrential rain and the Eau Rouge segment, which again, I know they've changed it recently, but potentially more changes incoming. Baxty, you've been an absolute legend, bro. You are an killer. I'm going to go and bathe a crying baby and look after a wife in distress because she's injured her back. Mate, you've been a legend. That has been another episode of the Shakedown podcast. Do me a favour if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's continue the conversation. Why not? Because if we don't, then this podcast will burn to the embers. I don't want that. You don't want that. Ringo definitely doesn't want that. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, scroll to the top, leave us 5 stars. The Shakedown to the moon in 2023. For co-host Baxty, I've been your boy Cameron. Between now and next time, look but never stare. Peace.